Good afternoon and welcome all of you for today's webinar on important aspects of environmental, social and governance, that is ESG. We thank Dr. K.S. Ravichandran, Managing Partner, KSR and Company, for accepting our invitation to speak irrespective of his busy schedule. Thank you, sir. I welcome all the participants joined us today. We thank our annual sponsors Brigade Group, Bueller India, Continental Automotive Components, Fundamax, IMPL, MTR, Ramaya Institute of Management, SDMIMD, Sona College of Technology, TVS Motors, Vishwas Group of Companies. It is my privilege to introduce the speaker, Dr. K.S. Ravichandran. Dr. K.S. Ravichandran is an accomplished corporate law and governance expert with more than 3 decades of core practice is the author of a book on CSR and ESG published by 𝙊𝙛𝙛𝙞𝙘𝙚, second edition of which is under print. His firm KSR and Company Secretaries LLP Bangalore, a member of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, has practical experience in all important aspects and essential attributes of ESG. His slogan is 5R, that is reduce, reclaim, recycle, reuse and recover. Now I request Dr. K.V. Omprakash, Chairman, Corporate Economic Affairs and Legal Expert Committee of BCIC to make his observations. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back again to another webinar from our committee. This topic has gained impetus in the recent time. It's popularly known as the ESG. Basically, ESG, the meaning itself is environmental, social governance. So today, Dr. KSR will be apprising us about the importance of ESG, its relevance to Indian companies who are supposed to comply with it. If you take the regulations, there is no one act which governs ESG. The Companies Act, the SEBI and the stock, the listing agreements, they kind of oversee this and make it important so that the top 1,000 listed companies comply with it. So Dr. KSR will run through his presentation and will be deliberating on the important aspects of ESG. And ESG is a vast subject, and we are sure that we cannot cover this within 1 hour, but definitely we can bring an awareness and the important aspect of the subject. So basically, this entire webinar will be concentrating on ESG, the sustainability of a business in terms of sustainable development through its product and services. So today, we would expect Dr. KSR to talk about the topic, the importance and the acts and other takeaways about this subject. On to you, Dr. KSR.
Good evening, everyone. It is indeed a very buzzword, I can say, that BCIC, more so, people at Bangalore have recently witnessed even water crisis. I do not know how is it now, but there is a reason for the crisis not only in India, but also across the globe in various basic needs of life, whether unpredictable changes, natural disasters occurring, sea levels rising and expected to rise further. A study by a Noida-based research institution was telling that by 2050, cities like Chennai, Kochi, Thiruvananthapuram may have a problem because there are bound to be rising of the sea levels. Therefore, world over there is a cause of concern, and we are going to have a responsibility, self-responsibility upon each one of us to understand this subject and thereafter provide sufficient thought in that to provoke it. I think my video quality is not good, but however, since I'm going to be in the presentation mode, I may not be requiring a video straight away. So I'll be switching off my video and presenting the PowerPoint presentation I have prepared for this program. I am sharing my screen.
Here to see. Yeah.
The screen is visible.
Yes, yes. The folder is visible. Folder is visible. Correct.
The folder is visible. Okay. Yeah. Now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Thank you.
Full screen madaka.
Yeah, this is the full screen mode I have. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which was adopted at the Paris Agreement 2015. If you look at the one which I have highlighted in red, you will be able to see that today, even in the era of 2024, we are talking about eradication of extreme poverty, provision of clean drinking water, and sanitation. Zero hunger or no hunger to provide food security, improved nutrition, and sustainable agriculture to be promoted forms the second Sustainable Development Goals. Good health and well-being for all ages is a Sustainable Development Goal. Inclusive and equitable quality education, lifelong learning opportunities is an SDG. Gender equality, empowerment of men and women is an SDG. Clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, promoting sustained, inclusive, sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. All these are forming part of the 17 SDGs which were adopted by the Paris Agreement in 2015. Way before that, from 2019, the Corporate Social Responsibility Voluntary 2009 Corporate Social Responsibility Voluntary Guidelines were introduced by the
Sir, sorry
Ministry
to
of
interrupt. The slide is not moving, sir. It is only in the first slide, if you don't mind.
Slide is not moving. Okay.
Yes, you are only in the first slide as far as the viewers are concerned. That's why if you put it in the slide mode and start going through the slides, we'll be now it's changing. Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
It is in slide mode.
Slideshow mode.
If it is in
Is it
slide
moving
mode on the
now?
left-hand side, it will not come, sir.
Bottom right side you have an icon. Yeah, there. Please click.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. Okay. Hope it is visible now.
No.
Yeah, we can see now the climate action COP 28. Yes.
That is
Full
exactly
screen, full
where I
screen.
am.
But it's still
Yeah,
not the
this
full
is the full
screen. Yeah.
screen. The Climate Action Conference in Dubai 2023 had to discuss about the global stock taking under the Paris Agreement. Some of the declarations were the temperature goal, temperature increase 1.5 degrees centigrade is what they wanted, but they noted with serious concern that 2023 was the warmest year on record. We had to discuss about financing, capacity building, technology transfer, and critical enablers of climatic action. The conference reaffirmed the sustainable and just solutions to climate crisis, and it must be founded on meaningful, effective social dialogue and participation of all stakeholders. Between 2015 to 2023, you will be able to observe here that the entire globe is seized with the particular concern of the ESG, creating difficulties for sustainable living, for leaving a future which is good for the posterity, the future generations to come. We must be able to live in a world which is comfortable as it is today, and or better than this, and also we must be able to leave it for future generations is the goal. Now, I was talking about the 2009 Corporate Social Responsibility voluntary guidelines introduced by the Government of India through the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So we had in 2009 itself certain principles drawn, and which were 9 principles were brought out of it. Churning happened in 2011, which we will shortly go through that. We also had the regulators, market regulator, capital market regulator, that is Securities and Exchange Board of India, coming into the picture and pushing the agenda, because it is no longer an individual's agenda, it is no longer an individual company agenda, it is no longer a city-based agenda or a state-based agenda, it is a global agenda. The whole of the nation is to be driven towards achieving the climate goals, and all climate action projects and programs must be oriented towards achieving the goal. That is the setting in which we are happy to present through BCIC, the ESG. Pardon, sir? Now, before going into the details of the topic, we may be required to, for the advantage of some of those who are supposed to be. Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah, audible, sir. Can you put the slides in like full screen?
Sir, you have to go into the slide mode, sir.
Right mode. At the bottom of the screen. Right hand
This is
side.
the slideshow mode. Is it okay?
Not okay, sir.
No, in my laptop, this is the slideshow, and I am having the bottom of this. There is a device for that slideshow mode only. I put it.
Okay, sir, go ahead,
Please go ahead.
Okay. For the benefit of some of them who may be, requiring an awareness about the certain terms and expressions which have come to be used now frequently. I have borrowed from the dictionary, climate dictionary. See the beautiful way in which they have coined it in the UNDP, climate dictionary. Carbon removal is one of the expressions which is used for removing the greenhouse gases emissions from the atmosphere through natural solutions of reforestation and soil management. Carbon footprint, everyone today is able to talk about the carbon footprint, which is a measure of this GHG emissions released into the atmosphere by a particular person, product, activity, organization. Carbon sink, it's a beautiful language which says, what are those that absorb the CO2 from the atmosphere? Do we have sufficient cover of it? Forests, oceans, they are called carbon sink. And circular economy, what a beautiful expression, in my opinion, which talks about minimizing the world's waste, reducing the pollution, and regenerating the nature. Now, greenwashing, side by side, we are talking about that also, because there could be a tendency to show certain numbers, to achieve certain things and show some numbers in a misleading manner, so that they will be able to project a positive environmental impact or a sustainability of their products and services to consumers. That is also known as greenwashing. Then there is a financing requirements for all these changes, that is climate finance.
Sir,
And the
slide,
most
sir.
important, pardon sir?
Next slide, please. You are now already gone to the next slide. Slide is not changing here.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Now it's okay.
Along with carbon footprint, we are also frequently using the word decarbonization. In every corporate's annual report, we will be able to read about the efforts they are doing towards decarbonization, which is reducing the amount of greenhouse gases that a society produces, as well as increasing the amount that is being absorbed. Now, we move to some more terms called sustainable sourcing. Whatever we need to source, from there the thoughts must come. Sustainable sourcing refers to integration of social, ethical, and environmental performance. These factors have to be incorporated in the process of selecting the suppliers itself and reclaiming. One of the, in fact, at the time of introduction, my friend was referring to my slogan on 5R. One of the very important slogan is reclaiming. This reclaiming is not an ordinary word. Reclaiming includes reusing, recycling, and also, if recovery is not possible, safe disposal. Then we have the extended product responsibility, which requires the study of the life cycle, and so that the producer, in a responsible manner, environmentally sound management technologies are used for going throughout the life cycle of the product. Now, having had this, let me try straight to take you through the proposals of the Securities Exchange Commission USA. The reason why I am taking through is that it is a global subject. Number one. Number two, I am proud to say, far ahead of, in terms of regulatory action, in terms of regulatory requirements, in terms of mandatory disclosures, in terms of mandatory target to be achieved, we are far ahead. And therefore, what are considered today as proposals in the USA have already been implemented. They have already been brought, which we will slightly after some time we will be seeing. The disclosures that the registrant or a listed entity is supposed to make as per the proposals of the Securities Exchange Commission are basically the disclosure frameworks called TCFD. That is nothing but the task force on climate related financial disclosures, and the greenhouse gas protocol. They are the fundamental basis for the framework for the disclosures required to be made. And the proposals are, what is the governance of the registrant in terms of climate related risks? What is the relevant risk management process? How climate related risks are identified at the board level, whether they will have a material impact on the business of the corporate, how any identified climate related risks have affected the business strategy, business model, and the outlook. What is the impact of climate related events? For example, a disaster happening elsewhere could cause a great impact on the business model of the company. What are the emissions which are divided into scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3? And if scope 3 is also material, they have to be provided. And climate related targets and goals, transition plans have to be given. These are all broadly the proposals now under consideration by the Securities Exchange Commission. Having said that, let me take you through the TCFD and GHG. Now, TCFD proposals are as follows. Hope the slide of proposals of TCFD is on the screen, because I'm just changed the slide to the proposals of TCFD. The Financial Stability Board established this TCFD, which is a climate-related reporting framework. It is ensuring easy comparability of various disclosures made by the registrants. And we have 4 important things. Number 1, the organization's governance. And when we talk about governance, we are not talking about overall governance. We are talking about governance around climate-related risks and opportunities. And when we say strategy, we say strategy is to disclose potential impacts of climate-related risks and opportunities on the organization's businesses, strategy, financial planning, wherever information is material. Then risk management, how the organization identifies, assesses, and manages climate-related risks, and what are the metrics. For example, world over today, any emission is supposed to be quantified in terms of CO2 equivalent carbon dioxide. What are the targets? What target the company or the registrant sets? These are broadly the proposals of TCFD. Now, let me take you through GHG. The GHG emission, the disclosures are basically for metrics. The protocols establishes comprehensive standardized framework. Consistent with the GHG protocols, the proposed rules would require a registrant to express each scope of its GHG emissions, as I said in advance, in terms of CO2 equivalent. The SEC says a standard unit of measurement for GHG emission rather than different units of measurement for different greenhouse gases should simplify the disclosure for the purpose of the stakeholders like investors and enhance its comparability across registrants with the different types of GHG emissions. So coming back to the home, from we have gone through the ESG related disclosure requirements in terms of US Securities Exchange Commission proposals. Now we move to why ESG is important. I feel today it is sustainability is a need of the hour. It creates a positive social impact. It is to reduce the risks and create an inclusive and equitable environment for all the stakeholders within and outside. That means we are going to talk about an inclusive and we take care of the interests of the society also. And that results in greater profitability, greater investment outcomes, increased reputation, and at the end of the day, better culture and intrinsic value. This is the reason why, these are all the reasons why we talk about ESG as an important subject. Now, how ESG is driven? To my knowledge, today, as of today, as far as India is concerned, the ESG implementation factors are A, voluntary, which we have seen. In fact, 2009, MCA introduced voluntary the guidelines only on CSR. Board itself accords priority. The OECD said if board is able to accord priority on the ESG goals, on the ESG aspects and parameters and key performance indicators, what else is required. Because the board itself is concerned about it. It accords the requisite priority. Down, it will go ahead and it will be implemented. Market driven, because market also pressurizes to introduce this business model, which is ESG safe. Regulatory, we have the SEBI and MCA, and SEBI has introduced the business responsibility and sustainability reporting formats. BRSR core has been recently introduced in 2023, and investors and shareholders are enforcing SDG by investors and shareholders. It's also a sort of an active participation by the investors and shareholders. And technology across the world, technologies are coming. About a week back, I read a report by Avendus, and Avendus report said the hydrogen energy is offering $125 billion of market. And there are companies in India which have found that hydrogen energy as fuel for their manufacturing operations is going to be double purpose. Number one, they will be able to achieve their net zero and decarbonization targets. Number two, cost effective. Therefore, technology is getting built around this subject to give a push towards achieving the goals. And consumers today prefer, globally there is a shift from fossil fuel to reduce the climate changes and impact. These are all the implementation factors: voluntary, market-driven, regulatory enforced, investor preferences, technology, and consumer preference. These are all basically the 6 drivers for implementation of ESG. Coming to the, I think the factors. When I talk about factors, these 3 pillars are very important: the environmental pillar, the social, the governance. When you talk about environment, there are 4 important things, aspects which are required to be kept in mind. Number 1, energy. Number 2, emissions. Number 3, water. Number 4, waste. If we are able to focus on these 4 parameters, it is sufficient to have a great achievement on the environmental pillar of ESG.
Slide change, please.
Sir, next slide, please.
Factors. Yes, sir. Factors of ESG.
Yeah, this is the one.
So, environmental pillar, which talks about climate change, GHG emissions and all, will have to be incorporated in terms of a policy. Normally, we can always say what is required to be done must start with your policy. Therefore, board action, bringing into existence a committee for CSR and ESG, because nowadays both are together dealt with by a single board committee, introducing a policy, making all the persons responsible aware of that, introducing methods for implementation. So in environmental pillar, remember these 4 things, which are the important things like energy, emission, water, waste. Then comes the social pillar. The social pillar is also as important as environment. What is the reason for giving impetus to the environmental pillar is to have a society which is livable. Therefore, in social pillar, we talk about health and safety. Whenever a corporate is looking at a health and safety, they would have to look at 2 important things. 1, inwards towards all its workers. 1, inward towards all its workers. One, inwards towards all its consumers. Two, externally the society, the social. Its actions, its extractions, its emissions could cause harm not only towards its workers and consumers, and it can be beyond also. Therefore, when we talk about social pillar, a corporate has much larger things to think in addition to the parameters set here on human rights, child labor. There cannot be a child labor, there cannot be a slavery, there cannot be any harassment, and there cannot be any products that are having larger social impact, and there must be a robust mechanism to deal with all these grievances. And attrition rate is considered to be one of the very important indicators of stress levels of employees. So social pillar is as important as the environmental pillar. And then we have the pillar called governance, which will take care of the whole of thing, which requires an independent board. The composition of the board must be structured in such a way there is a balance between independent directors and non-independent executive, non-executive, and executive directors. This is required for bringing a broad discussion point at the corporate level. The diversity of the board is very important. People must be drawn from different experiences and professions. The compensation must be equitable. Succession planning should be there. Risk governance is as important as any other thing. And there must be no doubt, level one is compliance. There is no way you will be entitled to be doing business in any country for the matter unless you are basically at level one doing the compliances. That is why increasingly cost of non-compliance is increasing. Therefore, companies are now towards engaging compliance professionals, governance professionals, and building robust technologies to ensure that there is no tolerance to non-compliances, defaults, delays, deviations, and discrepancies. Ethical practice, that is another important thing that must come from the individuals. If the board is a colorful board, ethics will automatically flow into that, and disclosures and reportings are a natural requirement for people to be able to understand, for investors to be able to understand, do analysis, compare it, bring regulations, make it as a feedback mechanism. Therefore, these are all the factors of ESG. Now, let me take you through the study I have done. A specific study I did on the basis of the guidance given by the Bombay Stock Exchange on key parameters, performance indicators of the ESG. I took top 50 companies. As of 31st March 2023, market capitalization, we have removed SBI and LIC because they are not companies, and therefore I just took the top 50 other than SBI and LIC. These parameters will present you in a minute how these top companies have achieved the three pillars, the environmental, social, and governance. Let me take you to the first output. This output will show you top 50 companies on environmental aspects. I have considered their disclosures on 9 items, starting from whether they have environmental policy. Have they studied environmental impact? Have they provided consumption of energy? What is the intensity? What is the GHG emission? And whether they have disclosed renewable and non-renewable energy separately? What is their primary energy source? And how they have managed water and waste? So you will be able to see on the slide, on the screen, some of the companies are yet to catch up. Some of the companies have done well. Some of the companies, certain things are not applicable. This study of top 50 companies alone I have done, but we can do it more for several other companies also, which will be showing the environmental aspects and the attention the board has given to this particular topic. Now let me take you through the social aspects of the same top 50 companies, 15 social aspects. You can see there how it is shown. Full-time employees, disclosure is made. Monetary and other benefits, disclosure is made. Likewise, you can see the last column or the pillar or the bar will show pending complaints and the post prevention of sexual harassment cases. You will find out of the 50 companies, there are about 28 companies which have reported, and this is clearly said zero pending complaint. That is 28. Whereas 22 companies, they have pending complaints at the end of the day. Therefore, by looking at this particular slide or the chart, you'll be able to understand assessment of 15 parameters under the social pillar is possible. These companies, we are not saying, or I am not suggesting they are performing completely well. I am only saying we are today having some data representation made by their boards to study and understand where do they stand. Similarly, let us go to the governance side of it. You will find in governance, we have taken 10 parameters. Do they have an ESG policy? I found the 5 companies do not have a separate ESG policy. Similarly, let me take the 4th pillar, separation of powers, promoter, executive director, and non-independent chairperson. It is exactly 25-25. You will find 25 companies have independent non-executive chairperson, whereas 25 companies have promoter executive chairperson. Similarly, when you talk about supplier code of conduct, 16 companies have no supplier code of conduct. These parameters once again reflect that we are moving towards achieving better output in key performance indicators of the ESG. Let me take you to the categories. So far as BRSR explanation or guidelines is concerned, the emissions are divided or categorized into scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. I will tell you that across the globe, this is how they are done. And I was really, I can say the word amused can be used. When I read the proposals and the background material of the Securities Commission, Exchange Commission, they have brought out this particular aspect saying, companies are likely to have their manufacturing or production facilities outsourced from third-party vendors, and thereby they may be able to present a picture of clean emissions, reduced emissions, and a positive picture. But if the companies do that, they are supposed to disclose whether direct GHG or indirect GHG from sources which are purchased or acquired, they have to be mentioned. Scope 3 also is supposed to be measured, which is outside the scope 2 emissions that occur outside the entity. Therefore, this is how the emissions are categorized, coming back to our content. Now, when we look at the reporting requirements in terms of the business responsibility and sustainability reporting requirements, financial year 23-24, top 1,000 listed entities by market cap are required to make disclosures. The section A is general disclosure. Section B is the management and process. Section C is the 9 principle-based disclosures. These 9 principles are nothing other than the 2011 MCA voluntary guidelines. Now, let me take you to the BRSR core, which is the latest requirement introduced from July 2023 by the circular of the Securities and Exchange Board of India. Greenhouse gas footprint, water, energy, and circularity embracing. This is the environmental pillar. Employee well-being, safety, gender diversity, inclusive development is social pillar. Fairness in engaging with customers and suppliers and openness of business is the governance pillar. They are the key performance indicators. Now, so far as reporting requirements are concerned, let me take you through the July 2023 circular, which requires BRSR core 2324 top 150 listed entities. BRSR core is nothing but the key performance indicators. Mostly the four things you can remember: energy, emission, water, waste, and the 9 principles. The core requires the listed entities to provide mandatorily a reasonable assurance of whatever they are supposed to disclose. Therefore, 2324 top 150 listed entities, and it goes like that. In addition, another important thing is top 250 companies comply or explain basis from current financial year 24-25. They have to make ESG disclosures for their value chain also. The value chain means both supply side as well as the selling side. Put together, 75% must be covered under the value chain, and therefore we are not any longer talking about ESG parameter disclosure for the listed entity alone. We are not talking about supply chain from the sources side alone. We are talking about both, and therefore it is known as value chain, which means through the listed entities, both on the supply side, sourcing side, and the selling side, there is a requirement for studying the ESG parameters of all the people who are involved in the supply to the company and purchase from the company. Limited assurance shall be also provided for the ESG disclosures for value chain from 25-26 on comply or explain basis. So I think 2030 we would have achieved everything. Now, let me take you to the market cap for the purpose of indicating what we are talking about. When we talk about market cap, as of 31/3/23, SEBI is mulling the idea of working on an average market cap for a period of 6 months, ending December of a financial year or calendar year, we can say, so that companies which fall in the average market cap will have 3 months, that is January, February, March, for the purpose of enhanced disclosures which may be applicable. Now, leaving aside that particular proposal, looking at the market cap scenario, we will be able to understand the top company has about 16 lakh crores as a market cap, which is nothing but the number of equity shares plus multiplied by the quoted price in the market on a particular date. And 50th company, you can see from 16 lakh crore, the 50th company falls to just 1 lakh crore. The 100th company is 50% of that or less than that. 150th company is just about 33,000 crores. And when you go to 200th company, it is 21,500 crores. And 300th company is 11,500 crores. And 400th is 7,100. And when it comes to 500, it is about less than 5,000 crores. So therefore, market cap as at 31/3/2023 gives you what is the number of the companies that are coming in a particular level and what requirements, disclosures they have to do. And so far, we have discussed several things about all these BRSR, all these key performance indicators. And we have always been discussing about net zero. World Resources Institute talks about net zero to be achieved when all emissions released by activities are counterbalanced by removing the carbon from the atmosphere, carbon removal. Achieving net zero is a two-part approach. There must be reduction, there must be renewable energy. The climate change can be overcome with the target of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. It is still possible, but in order to avoid worst climate impacts, global GHG emissions will have to drop by 2030, not far away. We're talking only about 6. And please read the next bullet. 90 countries have communicated net zero targets, including world's largest emitters, namely China, USA, India. So you will understand what is the role of our country, how important our country is supposed to be. Therefore, I studied what is the net zero target, India's top 10 companies. If you look at the choice of the companies, I hope the slide is visible, choice of the companies, you will find I have gone to the one of the most important emitters, fossil fuel suppliers, that is Coal India. 2070, they are saying we will achieve net zero. I will go to Coal India separately in a minute from now. You please see, next I have gone to the extraction of oil, ONGC. One is coal, another is oil. Both are fueling the economy of the country. ONGC 2038 and IOC, the refineries and the distributor of the oil, 2046, 2046. And now I have gone to the consumers, Tata Motors. They are the highest consumers of energy as well as water and producers of emissions and waste. 2045, Vedanta 2050, Asian Paint says they will achieve 80% reduction in scope 1 and scope 2 in emission as per the per kiloliter of their finished product. They have taken 2013 as the base year. NTPC 2070, JSW 2070, Adani 2050, Grasim 2050. This is the score. This is the plan of action by top companies, top 10 companies, I can say. And I have chosen the companies in such a way that they are the extractors, they are the people who supply the fossil fuel. Let us read about Coal India so that we understand a little more on the fossil fuel and the use of it in our day-to-day life. Coal India says fossil fuel is widely used and it is an integral commodity for power generation. Being the primary energy source for electricity, it is also used in cement, iron, and steel industries. And 13 million people are working depending on this in coal, mining, transport, power, sponge and steel. And country's total electricity generation in 22-23, including renewables, is 1,624 billion units. Of this total, coal-based generation is 70%. Renewable sources have grown by a robust 19, but it is only at 12%. So this gives you a complete picture of the country's power requirements and how it is being generated. And in the financial year 22-23, coal-based generation was 1,145.86 billion units, and this generation through domestic coal source was 1,105. That means the rest is only about 3.5 coming from abroad, and this entire thing is supplied by Coal India. This gives you a call. This gives you a big statement. Now, therefore, companies have to look at, individuals have to look at, service providers have to look at the product life cycle assessment. A complete picture must be there. Cradle to grave, cradle to cradle, or cradle to gate. A full life cycle or end of life cycle, so that we are looking at reclaiming. Reclaiming is a much larger term. It includes reusing, means we are able to put the products and components reclaimed, recovered for being used for the same purpose, and then recycling. Same purpose not possible, but products and components can be reprocessed to make new materials. And if these are not possible, we have to look at the safe disposal. That is why waste management comes. That is why waste classification comes. And therefore, we have to look at this as a very important requirement. Now I'll take you to the ESG aspects that investors look at. The ESG aspects that investors look at are on the screen. They look at all the pillars: the climate change, pollution, human capital, governance, human rights, and energy consumption. Everything is looked at by the investors. And the responsible investing PRI principles says incorporate ESG issues in investment analysis. Be active owners and incorporate ESG issues into our ownership policies. For the investors, that is institutional investors, seek appropriate disclosures. Promote the acceptance and implementation. Work together so that we are able to improve it. We are able to implement the principles and report on our activities, that is investors' activities. Now, given this particular situation, the 9 principles of National Voluntary Guidelines issued by the MCA, July 2021, you will understand how MCA's 9 principles have formed the basis for all the subsequent regulations come. Remember, 2015 we had the SDGs, but 2009 the CSR voluntary guidelines MCA introduced. 2011 National Voluntary Guidelines on Social, Environmental, Economic Responsibilities of Business was introduced, and there are 9 principles around which the whole disclosures are woven, and it is for businesses to run responsibly, ethically, transparency and accountability to be there, and provide goods and services that are safe, contribute sustainability, and respect, protect, make efforts to restore the environment. And all other 9 principles that are set out here. For want of time, I'm not reading out whole of the thing, but let me give you only 3 important illustrative things. Number 1, read this disclosure by Johnson & Johnson on 1st June 2021. 1st June 2021, J&J said $2.5 billion. Here it is. Because under the income verdict, J&J, for using asbestos as part of their talc powder, was awarded $4.7 billion to be paid in damages to the plaintiffs. In appeal, the Court of Appeal, Missouri Court of Appeal, reduced it to 2.1, and they went to the Missouri, that is State Supreme Court, refused to entertain the appeal. Then they went to the Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court. United States Supreme Court also said nothing doing, and therefore $2.1 billion with interest becoming $2.5 billion. The company paid on 1st June 2021. Companies with money and deep pockets can always pay it. Therefore, let me take you to the another important thing back home. This is the verdict of National Green Tribunal on 7th March 2019 in the matter of Volkswagen Skoda. It is a beautiful proposition. In September 2015, Volkswagen had installed cheat devices or defeat devices in their engines of thousands of vehicles. The software helped the cars to alter the actual pollution outcome so that they are able to manage and sell as if it is less polluting. They had suffered more than 26 billion euros in fines. The NGT observed, we may observe, precautionary principle and sustainable development are part of Article 21 of the Constitution. Section 20 of the NGT Act. This is precautionary principle and sustainable development. Part and parcel of these two. Polluter pays principle doesn't mean polluter will pollute and paying it. It will include environmental costs. NGT levied 500 crores because environmental cost is not restricted to those which is immediately tangible, but full cost for restoration of the environmental degradation. If cheat devices leading to pollution are ignored on account of absence of a procedural protocol, it will be against the accepted principles of environmental jurisprudence. This NGT verdict of 7th March is a very interesting thing which you may see. Current tendency, as you saw, is a non-profit, not-for-profit organization. In Caterpillar and GE, shareholders have moved resolutions requiring their boards to disclosing their climate policies and their policies and programs intended to achieve net zero. GE, Caterpillar, shareholder activism, investor activism. Therefore, this is the current trend. Now we have also the green financing, where a depositor is able to contribute towards green goals. There are regulations which permit regulated entities like banks to accept deposits for green activities and projects. There are certain activities which are included. There are certain activities which are not included. On the screen, you will find not included: extraction, production, distribution of fossil fuels. Please note, nuclear power generation not included. Waste incineration, waste putting on fire. There is no bogey. Alcohol, weapons, renewable energy projects generating energy from biomass, landfill projects, hydropower more than 25 megawatt. Therefore, today we have such green financing regulations also. In the light of this, what we understand today is we need to have a naturally livable society, livable world for all of us. And I can proudly say that everyone is now awareness is created. Through CSR, we are able to remove poverty. Through CSR, we are able to provide healthcare and quality education. When everybody is educated, when everybody is healthy, they will be able to apply their thought on ESG, a larger concept, and then demand, then enforce, then look out for implementation, then take to task. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. K.S. Ravichandran. And participants, if you have any questions, we have 5 minutes to go. Any questions?
Yeah, I think I have one for Mr. KSR. Firstly, thank you, sir, for this very lovely, insightful, and quite a detailed presentation, and more so with the BRSR code coming in, and the larger 150 companies having to review their ESG policies, actions, etc. I think there would be a lot of this ESR work, ESG work, and more specifically climate risk as well, coming for a lot of the CA firms, advisory firms, etc. In your interactions, Mr. Ravichandran, especially with the larger corporates, have you seen any concentrated drive and effort to reduce scope 3 emissions? And what are some of those actions? Because largely scope 1 and 2, people have been working towards that in their own delivery mechanisms, their own manufacturing plants and deliveries, etc. But scope 3, I mean, the potential to address that is significantly more. And, as I see and hear, a lot of work is to be done. So what has been your interactions with the large companies here?
Pankaj, you are very correct. Actually, we are now currently, since this is a new topic and everybody is looking at scope 1 and scope 2, the impetus on scope 3 or the thrust on scope 3 is very less. And with value chain also coming, with the disclosures becoming important, non-compliance is going to be penalized. Stakeholders will be also questioning not only the regulators, investors will also be looking at it. Therefore, I see a 3-pronged approach. In a period of time, maybe 3 to 5 years, we would have looked at scope 3 also with enhanced requirements of BRSR core and drive through the value chain. That is what we are seeing today. There is no scope 3 alone focus because primary sources were there in front of you. You are supposed to see how much investments have trillions of dollars have to be plowed into the stream of production in order to convert your everything into scope 1, 2, and GHG to renewable sources, green source.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Om.
Any other questions? We can take a couple of questions. Okay. Now I request Mr. A. Murli, advisor to BCIC, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thanks, Om, and my sincere thanks goes to Dr. S Ravichandran, who very clearly explained various facets of ESG. It included why you need to have ESG, what are the factors that are required for the implementation of ESG, sharing of BRSR reports by listed companies, MCA's 9 principles, RBI's green financing regulations, and many more. So my sincere thanks goes once again to you, sir, and also to all the participants who participated in large numbers today. So thanks also goes to Mr. Ramprasad from Secretariat, who was able to have this meeting convened at a very short notice. And our thanks goes to our chairman, Dr. Omprakash, who led us from the front. So thanks once again for meeting here today, and see you all in the next event. Thank you.
Actually, we are trying to come up with a physical seminar or workshop on ESG, and we will be shortly releasing the teaser on that. And I would request Dr. K. Ravichandran to take more lead, and also Pankaj to join us, so that we can take this at a bigger level as a panel discussion on other. Call the eminent people, because this is a vast subject. Various subject matters. We need expert people to give views on this, and where will India go in next 5 years. So that's the lookout from this committee. We will be doing this. Thank you, everybody, to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you so
organizing
much.
this, Dr. Omprakash, and lovely session again, Dr. Ravichandran. Thank you.